Hi, I'm Laura.
Hey, I'm Stefan, and you're listening to Attributed, a podcast library by Dreamdata.
The purpose of it is to store and share all the knowledge that we have gathered across Dreamdata employees through our LinkedIn Lives, podcasts, and webinars.
The typical topics you'll find here can be stuff like marketing,
Sales,
B2B ads,
operations,
social selling maybe.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Very excited to meet you again on a LinkedIn Live, and this time with a friend from the gifting world. We're meeting together with Kacie Jenkins today. Let's start this off. Kacie, welcome. Can you give a quick intro about yourself to everyone, and how did you end up in your journey as an SVP of Marketing for a gifting platform? That's an exciting role to have.
Yes, thank you for having me. I have not the quintessential career journey. I actually began my career as a professional singer when I was pretty young. And the thread through my career has always been around really building communities and audiences and understand what makes people tick. So I have worked in both B2B and B2C. I worked at Roku, launched the Roku streaming stick. I've worked leading hospitality for a large global hospitality group. And I've worked in tech for the last over a decade, I think, and worked at companies like Fastly, where I helped take a very small company from 25 engineers to a publicly traded company over about 7 years. And yeah, I actually used Sendoso and gifting for a lot of this. I used it for account-based marketing for our enterprise accounts at Fastly, which were highly technical buyers at places like the NFL and JP Morgan Chase. So I actually ended up here because I was a customer, and it's my love language.
Nice. Well, these are the best ones because you know how the tool works and you love it as well. But what does B2B gifting mean to you? Tell me about that.
For me, all of marketing is about building relationships, and it's about leaving people, however they engage with you, with a positive feeling after they interact with you or your brand. And your brand at this point, I know a lot of people are talking about this, is your people. So we have entered what I call the experience era, where we're all getting inundated with 11 sales emails a day, thousands of ads. We're exhausted just from sitting staring at the computer, right? And we're all craving human engagement more than ever before. AI is great, but it's actually changed the way we interact, and it's made content a lot easier to toss out into the internet sphere. And so, for me, gifting is kind of the fundamental underpinning of what all good marketing should feel like. It should feel like a delightful gift. For us, it's more concrete, right? It's how do you think through an experience, oftentimes, at each stage of a buying journey with many different folks, you're trying to build a relationship inside of an account. And that can be a digital and physical combination, which, in today's world, we're seeing digital kind of resonance drop a bit. You're going to need to think about, how do I take advantage of the channels where I can land something on someone's doorstep, I can land something in someone's mailbox, I can meet them in person, and I can lift, rising tide, the impact of all my other digital touch points by being more thoughtful and more resonant and more delightful. So that's how I think about gifting. It's not just a coffee
That's
gift
nice.
card that
Yeah.
now.
Even though that is also nice. We're going to dig into the nitty gritty details of all of the very thoughtful gifting and how to reactivate those accounts. But so for me, as a sales leader, what I remember gifting for before the actual platform started to do that thoughtfully, it was like swag sent out to people, and how many white t-shirts that are probably too big and not fitting you that well do you actually need? So, like, how do you move a company from random send outs of various stuff people probably don't even want to, into that strategic point of that we have to plan when and how the gifts are going
I
out?
actually work with a lot of companies. I think the first step of a gifting or swag strategy is typically the swag closet, the manual approach, everything scattered everywhere, everyone can stuff. can't track it and know what's going on. It can get pretty out of hand pretty quickly. I've been there, and typically your marketing or your people team or both become sort of like a swag service internally, and they're taking stuff to the FedEx and packing boxes at night. No one, like it can be a delightful elf factory feeling, like vibe, but that's makes it really hard to get your other work done. So with a lot of customers who have leveled out of that stage and using a platform like Sendoso or a gifting platform helps you bring all of it into one place where you can set up a Slack store if you'd like to, have your employees have the ability to buy or trade, credits for swag, or even your fans if you're
Nice.
doing an excellent job at brand marketing. Like some companies, they might want to come and purchase or do gamified actions to earn swag and wear your stuff. When we're talking about unifying a whole org, Sendoso typically sells into the marketing team, and we see the marketing team kind of being the galvanizer of a gifting strategy. But we see gifting happening across demand gen, field marketing, BDRs, AEs, ABM strategy, and then all the way to post sales where, we're talking about onboarding and milestones and activation and making sure that anniversaries are celebrated and people are beta
Yes.
testing, they get rewarded, right? So thinking through full, life cycle, it
Yeah.
can get very messy if you're not tracking all of that in one place with budget goals and the ability to have shared dashboards and look at the impact.
And we're also very used to measuring everything, or more or less putting everything into processes, because we might think, oh, at this time, a gift might be great. But that is a one off thing that you send out. And then if it's not a part of the whole strategy, is like, how do we actually replicate this? So maybe even swag is nice, but having it in a structure, understanding where does it have the best impact, that then it's easy to scale. So it's not just the marketing's jobs. Hey, they're marketing. Go over and send a box to somebody else out. I like that. And it's very, very important. And I guess for smaller companies, that's where it all starts as well, because marketing starts to get overwhelmed by all of those requests. Can you FedEx this, FedEx that? And then it's every second day. And then suddenly we don't have size small hoodies anymore. And yeah, it's like that type of somebody storing that for us and making sure that it's sent out when we need it. It's a very small but a crazy important piece of it as
Yeah, I
well.
mean, and it's okay to start there. That is where most companies start, and I think it's beautiful. But you pretty quickly level out of it when you're trying to have people focus on other strategic priorities. What we've been seeing is actually a pretty big shift from companies just thinking about swag. When I started at Sendoso 2 years ago, we were getting a lot of companies coming in saying, we just want to send socks, type use case. And so then we would have to have a conversation around there's a lot more you could probably do, than just send out a batch of socks. Now we're seeing companies come in going, hey, we have an event, we're running ads, we are we've built this cool interactive product tour on our site, we have an ROI calculator that we vibe coded yesterday, and we want, and we're doing customer marketing references, and we're holding we have an advisory board. How do we infuse gifting across all of this so it's all more effective? And it's overwhelming, I think, for a lot of teams to try and think about how to do this in a manual way. And so what we do is try and help folks figure out from the very beginning to the end, how can you build, like dynamic triggers and notifications? How do you use tools like user gems for, outbound and ABM that are going to notify you when there are trigger points within a customer journey? How on the other side can you use your product data, and the data that you own to actually trigger stuff within your product, and
Nice.
reward customers and make it less manual so that it's just automatically
Oh,
happening versus like an individual having to remember, write down, the trigger point and check in and make sure they're sending the gift.
yeah. Yeah. And that's where it starts to become a scale and not just a test of summer. Let's talk about the strategies for a couple of things. To start with, opening up new accounts or new territories. And it's starting in pretty cold. Can you share some tactics or maybe examples of what you have been seen working, adding in gifting for those types of strategies?
Yeah. So again, I am a huge fan of combining digital with physical touch points. And I just want to say that I am not on a train of telling everyone they shouldn't use digital channels because that's ridiculous. And we use everything in one big beautiful symphony, which Dreamdata helps us visualize across our customer journeys. It's really hard to do this, by the way, if you're just looking at first or last touch, because that's not going to show you anything you need to see in terms of what's impacting the different people inside of your buying journey. If you're trying to break into a new territory, you're going into a new region. We, in fact, are actually doubling down on our presence and brand awareness in EMEA, for example. I think this is where it's a really beautiful, impactful, powerful thing to combine physical and digital. So making a list of target accounts, like getting really clear on what's the criteria and the ICP, who is in that territory that fits, those qualifications, and then figuring out how do you use the tools at your disposal to track those accounts on that list. And oftentimes we see folks doing a smaller sort of VIP list of really high impact accounts that look like they're showing some intent in their, they're going to be whales,
Mhm.
and then more programmatic growth, targeting for a larger list of accounts. And so you can do the
Mhm.
same thing you would do with advertising with gifting. So, there's sort of like a 6-part like framework that we've been recommending,
Mhm.
which is
Come.
you're trying to warm up a territory. Start with personalized ads, start warming up the folks inside those accounts. You can do hyper personalized ads for a small VIP group and then do, more generic targeted ads for a really large group. There are tools that let you do this one to many at this point. We use Carrot, and then deploy gifting when you're starting to see folks engage with those ads. So Dreamdata lets us see actual little, like what I call flurries of engagement, where you're starting to see people engage. And I will comment here, if you're trying to do advertising like this, you're trying to do paid LinkedIn without engaging with the community and having your team doing organic LinkedIn posting consistently, it's not going to be as
Mm.
impactful. Especially if you're trying to go into a new territory, you should be activating your team there and having them post consistently to start building relationships and resonance. So then, add your ad layer and then start looking at who's engaging and connect with them on LinkedIn or wherever the social platform is that your ICP lives, and then send gifts. And you can actually automate the gifting. So if you start to see,
Mhm.
conversions and ad engagement, you can automate the gift send, or you can decide you'd like to do that manually for a small VIP list. Sendoso helps you because we have the largest gifting database in the world. We can help recommend to you what you should send, and our Smart Send
Excellent.
feature will recommend the message and the gift for you. So you can use that in tandem with, an intent tool and
Yeah.
automate the whole process, or you can do it more manually by hand. And then, make sure that you are following up when the gift lands. So that's a very different process than you're just sending a whole bunch of cold emails and calling. It gives you a reason to follow up because you sent them something, hopefully, that's very resonant and meaningful to them. You saw and tracked that the gift landed on their doorstep, and now you can follow up and add value and ask what they thought.
Mhm.
And then you can, engage on LinkedIn, start building a relationship. You can make sure that you're not pitch slapping them at all because we highly don't recommend that. It makes people sad inside. Laura's actually, you should follow Laura and watch what she does. It's great. And then, invite them to an experience. So take it one step further and, like invite them to a dinner or an in person event, send them a gift box beforehand. You can do a virtual event as well. And, if you're doing a dinner, and people are having cocktails, send them an Uber code so you can get them home safely because we take care of people.
There's so many things to follow up on this, and this is the whole experience. You're trying to open up an account, and probably that is a high potential, high value account, and they would remember you forever for all of this that you have done for them, both sending a gift. Already they have seen your ads, they have been driven home safe and all that. It's like, how come am I not buying from this brand comparing to everything else on the market? Because they are doing all this stuff. Means that they're caring. Plus, of course, your product has to work. So you there is that caveat.
Has to
But
work.
but still, that you have shown up as caring to have this client and take care of the client in the future as well. But I have so many follow-up questions on this. for me, before I actually got a gift from you guys, I did not know the process how this works, because in my mind, when you have not tried that automated through a platform, you think that, oh, so how do I get the address of the person to send it to them? How do I actually get to talk to them for them to accept that they're going to receive a gift? These are the basic that people are thinking about before they're trying the platform. And then finally, you understand that it's actually very, very simple because you do it through a platform. Tell me real quick, how do you do gifting when so it's not awkward and you don't have to have that type of permission? This is my address. Please don't show up at the doorstep.
Katie is in the chat. If you would like to learn how to do this really well, Katie Penner is our queen of gifting.
Yes, Katie, we all love you so
Yes.
much.
Follow her in Austin. My team is really excellent at this and has taught me a lot. But yeah, I mean, I think any marketing touch point, including a gift, is going to be more powerful if you've already put in effort, whether that's, what Laura does, where she's just adding value every single day on LinkedIn and helping people and commenting and sharing good information. That influenced my buying decision personally to buy Dreamdata. I trusted her and I thought she was really smart and I appreciated what she was doing in the community and it was magnetizing. So if you're just sending a gift and you're not doing anything else, that's still powerful, but it's not going to resonate in the same way, as if you've already put in some effort so that they can see who you are, what you're all about, and know that you are like a helpful, engaged community member and you're not trying to be transactional. So I would really recommend leveraging a social or community or LinkedIn strategy in tandem so people see that you're not trying to trade a gift
Yeah.
for their time. You're actually like your intentions are good. When you are sending a gift to someone on a platform like Sendoso, I think there's an old school idea of manual gifting, like in the before times. Now, when you don't have an address, that's not a problem. So you're hopefully engaged or connected with this person in some way, or you see that they're following your posts and they're commenting, they're watching what your team is putting out there. You see a sign that there's some level of interest, right? And then you're gonna either trigger the gift, through Sendoso platform and our integrations and whatever else other tools you're using for intent. And that will trigger an email to them if you don't have the address that will show them the gift that you want to send beautifully. It'll show the note, which will be personal. Sendoso can help you write it if you're unsure what to say and recommend the gift. And then it will ask where they'd like it to be sent. And they can confirm where they'd like it to be sent and just hit send and send it to themselves. And then they can track what's happening with their package and you can track what's happening with their package. Once it arrives, they'll have the opportunity to send a thank you note if they really like it. So we actually have a repository that shows which gifts resonated so well that thank you notes were sent, and thousands of thank you notes are actually sent, which is really cute. And we love watching them at Sendoso. Now we're actually building a tool that's in beta where we will recommend the address for you. So if you want to surprise and delight, you don't want to send the email that sort of lets them know it's coming. We will find the address for you. Currently we're around 90% accuracy, lots of testing happening, and we will help you land it on the doorstep for surprise and delight. This is something that's never been done in gifting, and it's a huge unlock, and we're drinking our own champagne and doing a lot of this. I think, the important part here is that if you're going to surprise and delight someone, hopefully you have done the work beforehand so that they're aware of you and your brand, and you're investing in brand marketing and your people and team. Also, hopefully you're sending a gift that's resonant and delightful enough, and a note that shows them you've really done your homework and an effort and time was put into it. Humans value things that feel like effort and time were put into them more than things that feel messy, sloppy, lazy. That's just how we're built. So I think, those are the things to keep in mind. Also, really not a fan of the like this for that. So me sending Laura something that's like, hey, can I trade you this, like Ferris wheel Lego for your kid for an hour of your time? Instantly cheapens the interaction, right? So we're not doing that. We're doing a PS. I hope you enjoy this. PS. Here's a gift card for a restaurant I see is down the street, and I'm, you can take your family out on me. Make it feel like the way you would talk to a friend.
Yeah, yeah. Very cool. And there's a question in the chat as well. Would you be sending a gift to the office address or a personal? What works
Actually, building it to find the best address for them. So it will land at home addresses. In the same way that you probably get like the credit card, like pieces of mail in your inbox.
Yeah.
We're leveraging the same publicly available data and technology to land on the doorstep. I
Right.
think, again, you can do pretty much any marketing tactic in a way that feels creepy. You can do it in a way that feels thoughtful and delightful. So
Right.
it's it's kind of important the way that you are approaching something so that it's not going to feel transactional, icky, weird.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly. We just have to learn the ways to interact with it because intent is the same thing. It's like, oh, I've seen you on my website. Do you want to buy? It's like,
right.
wait,
I've seen
sit
you on
down.
my page right now.
Exactly. It's like, bing, bing, want to buy? Talk to a salesperson. No, wait. I just very much like this picture on your website. Anyway, but now if we're talking about revenue and sales cycles, do you see any patterns where gifting is the most impactful to activate in the pipeline stages?
We do. So, again, not knocking digital, but I just think it's, with the advent of AI, it's really made it difficult to stand out when you're doing digital only. We actually see a 26% win rate on SQLs with gifting as compared to like 16%, 13% when it comes to advertising and like
Wow.
pure digital. And engagement wise, 68% engagement rate on direct mail compared with around 25% or lower with digital. We have customers who are seeing 27% response rates up from like 2% just by integrating gifting into their outbound and ABM strategies to humanize every step of that process. And I personally have seen a pretty substantial lift in like 13% increase in deal size, 30% increase in time to close, 2x improved win rates across our customer base when they implement gifting as a hybrid strategy and or a solo strategy. So there's a pretty big rising tide impact here that I think a lot of companies aren't taking advantage of yet. Knowing that buyers are interacting with 10 plus channels across a buying journey, why would you not be using the most human channels available to you to reach them during that process, especially knowing that once they raise a hand and they're booking a meeting, they're kind of done. Like they've decided who they like best.
Yeah.
Um, so if you're not that person or that brand, you've already missed out. You're starting too late.
I see that. I see that. And it's very impactful numbers to hear. Well, we're all bombarded with AI. we we don't want more of this. Let's get bombarded with gifts and see which gift wins so that we can do benchmark on those.
Yeah, I think there are ways to use AI to do all of this better. Like we should be thinking about AI as a way to create more human experiences, not as a way to replace human experiences, and thinking about how do we use the data at our disposal, assuming you trust your data. Do not layer AI on top of data you don't trust. That's garbage. That's a really bad scenario. But assuming you have great data, which we do, think about how AI can help you use your data to figure out the right person. Who should I be reaching out to? Why and when should I be reaching out to them? How should I be reaching out, and what should I be saying that's resonant? There's amazing like research powers that we can use AI for, just to make sure that we are taking advantage and like doing our homework before we reach out to someone,
Yeah.
and it's going to be the most impactful outreach instead of we're throwing it away.
Nice. Really, really cool. And now we spoke about the impact of pipeline and revenue. What if you're looking into expansion, customer loyalty? Do you have any stories to share around that? How does gifting impact customers when you already have them?
Yeah, I actually we had Mark on from User Evidence on a webinar this week where he talked about how they are actually a Postal by Sendoso. Sendoso acquired Postal recently, customer, and he is a friend and an excellent marketing leader who I really respect. He has built gifting into his post sales, so they are using it to build stronger relationships, and in the same way that We see companies build this into their new business, like outbound. And we do this at Sendoso as well. You can build it into your all of your customer marketing and customer engagement. So we actually do see stronger retention and renewal numbers across all of our customers doing this. Magaya is also an incredible example of this. Alfred, whom we love, implemented this there. And we see stronger customer relationships and champions and also expansion dollars going up as well. I think it's about, again, non-transactional, right? Like use this to build relationships and deepen your connection with your customers at the right moments in their customer journey. And it can be used for anything from, like product milestones to customer references to, like in getting people into beta and like getting them activated on new tools and getting them to events and putting together an advisory board and making those people feel special and appreciated. There are tons of use cases, and a lot of them can be automated. And the, just even as simple as making sure a good place to start would be, do you know the anniversaries and like important dates that are tied to the people inside your customer accounts? Are you using that opportunity to make them feel special? 101, right?
That is so interesting. Yeah. Like when you're doing your research or when you're talking with clients, how often do you memorize or write down that, oh, we had an anniversary. So probably next year you should send a gift or something has happened. So it could be a part of your strategy to become more human, to remember that specific date and to do that automatically the next time. I love this. This is really good. When speaking about gifting's ROI, let's start with the cost. So, when choosing gifts, how do you work with your budgets? How do you set aside? And what are the amounts that people are working with comparing to their ACV before we dig into ROI?
This is also an interesting perception shift we're seeing. When I started 2 years ago, I think a lot of companies thought gifting's really expensive and
Yeah.
prohibitive, maybe only for VIP accounts. That's really not true. I'm going to start by saying think about the gifts you've received that really resonated or mattered to you. They weren't probably necessarily $1,000 really expensive gifts. It was the intent and the resonance and the meaning behind those gifts that made them special. For me, I am really particular about my gifts, and they need to feel like someone understood me personally. And so some of the best gifts I receive have been like, I told a friend recently, shout out Ruby from LinkedIn, who is a delightful human being. I told her I was trying to do more video posting on LinkedIn, which makes me really nervous. And I told her that every morning I'm trying to build a habit by doing it over my cup of Earl Grey tea where I feel most comfortable. And so she thoughtfully sent me a beautiful tea set with like a gilded little honey dipper to make my experience even more delightful, so I would do it and, help me with my habit, right? I thought that was
Yeah.
so lovely, and my partner actually does
Nice.
a lot of that for me too. I'm trying to, like, journal every morning, so he got me this beautiful pen, that I can take out and feel special with. So anyway, not doesn't have to be expensive, right? Doesn't have to be a gilded honey dipper, which, she went above and beyond. But what we see actually is that the average cost of a gift is around $50 across our customers, and it can be less if it's meaningful, right? We see a lot of custom Legos sent, like actually like Legos of, someone's dog or someone's car or someone's HQ or like, the Ferris wheel in London. People get very creative, and that's not super expensive, but it's memorable, right? And it means something.
Mm.
And, average campaign budget we see, meaning like a full campaign you're targeting a fairly large number of accounts and trying to break in is around 10 to $15,000. And we see about 100 to 132, 140 gifts sent across a campaign like that. Imagine though
Okay.
this is for like an enterprise account where you're trying to reach different people within a buying committee and really make sure you're building those relationships and you're top of mind and you're not going to have the deal get stuck. And not all of those are $50 gifts. Some of them are probably higher, once you get further in the deal
Mhm.
cycle. Some of them are really small, and I'm not opposed to something like a lunch gift card, if
Yeah.
For example, Laura, you're like doing a demo and you're like, let me just buy you lunch while we're doing the demo. It
Yeah.
versus let me trade you lunch for this demo. It's very different. But those are all different, spend amounts across a deal cycle. And you're thinking about, who am I talking to? What average cost makes sense? If you're a BDR sending out a whole bunch of lunch gift cards, you're going to have a different kind of like budget and spend than if you are head of demand gen, or you're someone like me who's actually sending out pretty high value gifts sometimes at a certain point in a deal cycle where we've built a really strong relationship. And
Yeah.
so, I think thinking about what you spend on other channels, and that on average we're easily spending $150 a lead. Gifting is actually one of the highest ROI ways to reach someone with really high recall, high engagement, and high conversion.
Yeah, and it's a very good point to have that comparison done as well. What is it that you're ready to pay for a lead? What is it that you're ready to pay for an SQL? And comparing those pieces of a gifting channel versus another channel that you're investing money into, and then the conversion rates of those, then it's so much easier for you to combine and see. Do you do that type of reporting for yourselves, guys, to see where does it make sense to invest money?
Yeah, we are doing a lot of that ourselves. So like I actually see that, and again, for me, it's less about this old school attribution thinking that drives me crazy, where it's like, which channel should I cut, or eliminate completely because I only see, like the last touch converting.
Yeah.
For me, it's like which channels and touch points work really well together, and we see acceleration in a deal, or we see deeper relationships happening as a result. And for us, what we're recommending is looking not only at the impact to qualified pipeline and revenue, which is obviously the top line metric that all of us are held to, and our marketing team generates 99% of
Mhm.
qualified pipeline. So it's really important to us. But also be looking at deal acceleration. Are you seeing, acceleration? Are you seeing hybrid touch points or physical touch points working better than a digital touch point across the deal cycle over
Yeah.
time? You can time box an experiment and look at it over quarter or 2 quarters, depending on your
Nice.
deal cycles. Are you seeing bigger deal sizes? Are you seeing that your sales team's able to multi-thread more easily, which in fact we do see across our own teams and our customers. So are you seeing higher ACVs when you're incorporating gifting and physical moments versus you're just trying to reach people digitally? Are you seeing relationship depth indicators like response rates are up? Are meeting acceptance rates up? Are people showing up more and you're getting ghosted less? Are you going, close less unresponsive less in your sales cycles? And are you seeing stronger champion like involvement engagement in your deals? And then, on the other side, looking at customer retention, renewals, expansion, activation, customer champions. So it's really, I think, important for us to go beyond the dread first, last touch, like, put
Yeah.
marketing in a box. I feel really strongly about using a tool like Dreamdata to be able to visualize this, to get buy-in internally when you're running tests like this. You can do it with self-reported attribution if are a really small company with no budget, but it's a lot easier to do this when you have something that shows you what's happening across a deal and across all of your customer journeys.
Thank you so much for being a valued client and also for shouting that out for others who are trying to do this. So we're very, very happy to be working with you guys. And you spoke about this a lot, sales and marketing working on this together. How do you actually make this work? Because now it's from what you're talking about, it actually seems like it's mostly the sales activity. Like you see what's happening, you send the gift at this certain time of the deal cycle. So, where does the collaboration shift when gifting is involved between sales and marketing?
When you are using something that like a centralized platform, it makes this a lot easier. So, I think it all starts with really clearly mapping your ICP and getting, really tight with sales and marketing on what does a good deal look like, and
Mhm.
what does a qualified account look like for us. If you don't have that, none of this is going to work. So start there, and then look at who are the folks inside of the accounts that we're trying to target. Like create your account list based on the criteria you've agreed upon, and then look at what we call who's above the line and who's below the line, who are the players inside of the accounts that you're trying to reach. And, looking at your deal cycles, how long does it take you typically to work a deal? How many of those accounts do you think you can move from disengaged, unaware
Mhm.
to the next stage? And you can have really simple stages you agree on in terms of like, what are we seeing engagement wise that tells us this account that didn't really know we existed is now, aware of us, engaged with us, and like converting? For us, it's a really, really tight partnership where a lot of this is automated by marketing because we're,
Mhm.
buying and using the intent tools. We're looking at the account journeys. We're doing a lot of thought leadership on social media. And so a lot of the early touch points are marketing driven and with triggers that notify sales. Hey, these things happened. Your account is engaging, with ads. Your account is engaging with our organic social post. Your account just came to a webinar that lets sales and AE know. And on Sendoso, the BDRs report into marketing. So they are part of this largely automated journey. And then they are also weaving in calls and gifting where we see little spikes, engagement that let them know it's a warm
Mm.
call. Well, we call it a warm call, not a cold call. Why would you have your BDRs only working really, really cold
Yeah.
accounts versus like looking at what's warm and then reaching out at the right moment? So for us, it works where we all have really tight visibility into who we're targeting, how those accounts are moving forward, and then the AEs actually have specific folks inside those accounts that are priority for them, and marketing team and BDRs have
Mhm.
a certain priority of folks that we're trying to reach, and then we have exec sponsors as well. So I am almost always involved in those high impact deals where I'm trying to connect, I'm trying to add value, I'm DMing, the decision makers, I'm sending gifts myself, I'm inviting them to dinner, I'm taking them out. So, there's really with us not a baton pass. There's never like, oh, marketing thinks it hit this threshold and now we're tossing it to sales. Marketing stays involved through the whole journey. And then our AEs, will once someone raises a hand and is like, we want, a sales call or we want to do a demo, our AEs will start the process of like, gifting and multi-threading through
Yeah.
to procurement, and that side of the sales process.
It makes things so much easier because as a salesperson, you do want to close the deal, you do care about this, but then now they're buying. Let me just go talk to them and close the deal. And if you don't have a right tool to just automate that delightful experience before the call, after the call, whatever, you would just not do it. This is just the nature of the persons. Like I would just not do it because I'd rather prepare for the call very well and do the next fast thing instead of doing the gift that will delight them probably
That
with the
might
deal for it.
drop for us, that could get dropped in, with busy AEs, they're doing a lot of calls and they're working a lot of deals and doing a lot of their own research. Anything that could get dropped because it's an extra touch point, we're going to automate where we can. And that's what I'm
What
talking about, where you can automate in a way that it is human and is actually more human oftentimes, is going to add to the
yeah,
experience as long as it's thoughtful because, it's not as impactful to leave it to chance and, manual thinking
exactly.
and tasks.
Exactly. Talking about thoughtful gifts, look at what Lauren is saying. She's saying, I recently spoke with one of our customers about a prospect convo they had last year. Prospect was swamped around holidays, complaining about running out of time before Christmas. So their customer listened and send them a ton of wrapping paper via Sendoso. That does not show in the message. Via Sendoso to get ahead of things. Easy and intentional. So you don't have to send just a coffee card or a cap or a t-shirt. You can send freaking wrapping paper through Sendoso. This is fun.
Pay
Love it.
attention. I think we're unfortunately kind of in this era where everyone is in a rush and we're trying to, like rush and get straight to business a lot of time in sales calls. The rapport section of a sales call, I actually don't think I've bought anything where the sales rep rushed through and didn't ask me about myself because I didn't form a relationship with that person. And if you're skipping through an opportunity to get to know how someone's doing, what's important to them, what's stressing them out, like, do they have pets? What do they like to do? You're missing out on an opportunity to take a ton of notes on how you could be useful or resonant with that
Yeah,
person.
exactly. So To wrap this up, where is the future going for B2B gifting? What's coming? Tell me.
We're very excited about the future. We are heavily engaged in building it right now. The way we foresee the future of gifting, which is partially available in beta on Sendoso now, but also we have our elves working in the background, is that it will be as easy to send a you know full-fledged gifting campaign as it is to launch a digital ad campaign. And we have AI built into our platform, leveraging all the data we have on gifting success and resonance across different personas and different use cases. So in the not too distant future, our gifting platform, and this is what we think the future of gifting should look like, can, you know, figure out the right person for you to send to, figure out the right gift for that person, figure out the right message for that person, help you figure out, what is the best way to send it and integrate with your tools to automate the process and find the address for you and ship it out and track it and let you know, did it resonate. It should do all of those things effortlessly, so you can choose, should I automate the whole process, or do I want to manually implement some pieces of it or add, like gate checks where I eyeball it. And this can happen instantly in the future. And the future for us is this year. So it's
That
exciting.
is very fast. That's very fast. And you also mentioned like even the thoughtful messages that you don't have to be the one writing them. You could just approve what type of message goes out, what type of gift comes out. That future is
But
already here. So it's going even faster than that. That's very, very exciting. Thank you so much for the session today, Kacie. If people want to reach out and figure out what kind of dog you've got, or just in general to follow your processes within gifting and working with your team, what is the best way
I
to
have
do it?
2 dogs, and, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. That's where I live, so I'm happy to connect. I love having chats. I love learning from other go-to-market leaders. Would love to get to know anyone who's here. Thanks for joining.
Nice. And Kacie brought in her team to this call as well. So shout out to Kacie, to Austin, who has been cheering in behind of these scenes as well. They're also amazing. Follow the team to see how gifting is put into the whole experience of not just sending a gift, but the whole team is working around both the social part, the gifting, and the ads are working in just one symphony. So somebody can sing. All right. Thanks, everyone.
We hope you like listening to us. Subscribe to our podcast and the ones that we have been guests on.
And if you have any feedback for us, just do let us know. And should there be a guest that you think we should be talking to, then pitch us.
We're looking forward to seeing you.